My name is Jake Mercer. I was 22 years old and camping alone with my younger sister and her college friends in the middle of a forest in Maine when a stranger sent us a photo of himself standing right outside their tent. I had a rifle. He had our exact location, and none of us heard him walk up. Stay with me because this one does not end in the woods. The woods outside Bangor. My sister Claire is 3 years younger than me. She and her friends had been planning this camping trip for about a month, 4 of them altogether. Claire and 3 friends from her university program named Casey, Barbara, and Lexi. They had never done a real wilderness camping trip before, just state park stuff with families, so Claire asked me to come along as the experienced one. I want to be clear about the setup because it matters. This was not a campground with a parking lot and a ranger station 50 yards away. This was deep woods in central Maine, down a fire road off Route 9, about 4 miles from the nearest paved surface. No cell signal, no neighbors. Nothing out there except trees and dark. I brought 2 tents food for 3 days, a first aid kit, tools, a water filter, and my rifle. I always bring a rifle camping. I have since I was 17. I grew up in rural New Hampshire, and my father taught me that the woods are beautiful, but they are not safe, and a prepared person is better than an unprepared one every single time. It was a lever action 30-30. I kept it in a hard case, and I knew how to use it. We set up camp late in the afternoon. I put up both tents about 8 feet apart in a clearing close enough to the tree line to have wind cover, but open enough overhead to get starlight. I helped the girls with their tent first, then set up mine. By the time I was done, they had a small camp stove going and were making pasta and talking about whatever college juniors talk about on a Friday night. After dinner, I put the fire out and went into my tent. I left the reading light on and picked up my book. The girls were still up talking in theirs. I could hear them clearly through the nylon. I was not trying to listen. I could just hear them. They were talking about school, then about someone named Tyler, then about Snapchat. Casey mentioned she did not have Lexi on Snapchat yet and asked for her username. Lexi gave it. I turned a page. About 5 or 6 minutes went by. Then Lexi said something in a confused voice. She said some random person just added her. I lowered my book. The other girls told her to add them back and see who it was. I heard them checking the account. Casey said the score was only 7, practically brand new. Then they went quiet for a moment, and I heard something that raised every hair on my forearms. A message had come through. It said, "Hi, send me a pic." The 4 of them laughed. I could hear them whispering and giggling, and I imagined they were deciding what funny photo to send back. I told myself it was just some random kid who had found the account through the location tag or a shared contact. I told myself to stop listening and go back to my book. I turned 2 more pages without reading a single word. Then all 4 of them screamed. Not a joking scream, not a laughing scream. The kind of scream that bypasses your brain entirely and sends your legs moving before you have made any decision. I was out of my tent with the rifle in my hands in under 4 seconds. I do not fully remember grabbing it. I just had it. I yelled into the dark around the camp. I fired 3 shots into the air above the tree line. The sound of the rifle in that silence was enormous. I kept yelling. I put myself between the tree line and their tent entrance, and I stayed there for a full minute, scanning the dark. Nothing moved. I crawled into their tent. Claire grabbed my arm immediately. I asked what had happened. They were all shaking. Lexi showed me the phone. The stranger had sent a photo back. It was a selfie. A man maybe mid-40s, taken with the camera held close to his face. He was smiling, directly at the lens. And behind him, visible in the background of the photo, was their tent. Our camp. The exact spot we were sitting in. He had been standing right outside the tent wall when he took it. I slept inside with them that night with the rifle across my lap. We left at first light, did not stop moving until we hit the fire road, and then the main road, and then a gas station with lights and people and a payphone, I used to call my father. I never found out who he was. We had no cell service to call the police from the woods, and by the time we were back in range and made the report, there was nothing left at the campsite worth tracking. I have not gone back to those woods. I am not sure I ever will. The map feature. The second thing I want to tell you is something that happened to a friend of mine, but I was pulled into it in a way I did not see coming, and the ending of it still makes me feel cold when I think about it. This was about a year after the camping trip. I had a friend named Tara who I had known since high school. She was one of those people who lost her phone about twice a year and somehow always got it back. One afternoon, she sent me a photo on Snapchat of a pair of shoes she had spotted in a store. I sent back a reaction. She did not reply. I sent a text. She did not reply. I sent a selfie making an exaggerated sad face and asked why she was ignoring me. She opened it almost immediately that time and typed back, "Where are you?" I said I was at home. She said, "Where is home? What is your address?" I closed the app. I drove to her apartment. She was there without her phone. She had left it on the bus the previous morning. She had not had it for over a day. I went home and the paranoia started working on me almost immediately. Someone had Tara's phone. Someone had been in her Snapchat, in her texts, in her contacts. They had been talking to me for the last hour, pretending to be her and asking for my address. Both of my roommates were away that weekend. I was alone in the house. I checked the doors. I checked the windows. I told myself I was being irrational and watched TV for an hour and then checked the doors and windows again. Around 11, I was in bed with my phone when I remembered something. Snapchat had a map feature. If Tara's location was enabled on her account, I could open the map and see where her phone was right now. I opened the app. I found the map. Tara's Bitmoji was sitting directly on top of my house. I turned my lamp off. I reached over and pulled the window blind down without sitting up. I lay there in the dark with my phone face down on my chest and listened to the house. The floor downstairs creaked, just once, the way a floorboard creaks when weight shifts on it. I dialed 911 and stayed on the line. I spoke in a whisper. The operator told me to stay in my room with the door locked and not to move. I pushed my desk chair under the door handle. I lay there in the dark listening. I did not hear the creak again. I did not hear anything else. I stayed on with the operator until the police arrived about 9 minutes later. They cleared the house. Nobody was inside. No signs of forced entry. The doors and windows were all secure. They found Tara's phone outside, in the backyard, under a bush near the back fence. Screen still on, battery at 62%. Whoever had it had not been gone long. The officer told me the phone had probably been dropped or thrown over the fence when the person saw or heard something that made them leave quickly. Maybe a neighbor's light coming on, maybe a dog. Maybe they just decided it was not worth it. He said I had been right to call. The next morning, I returned the phone to Tara and changed the settings on every app I had to the most restricted privacy option available. I disabled location services on Snapchat entirely. I still think about the timing. The moment I opened that map and saw her Bitmoji sitting on my house, the moment the floor creaked, the gap between those two things was maybe 4 minutes. I do not know how long they had been out there before that. Sean from the gym. The last thing I am going to tell you about is the one that ended with police and a body on my bedroom floor. But I want to start at the beginning, because the beginning is what makes it so hard to explain to people. It started at a gym. I was 23, living in a 2-bedroom house in Westfield, New Jersey. I went to a local gym called Black Bear Fitness on Oak Street. Nothing fancy, just a decent place with good equipment and a crowd that mostly kept to themselves. I had been going there for 2 years. I had a routine. I kept my headphones in. I did my work. I did not make small talk. One afternoon, I was halfway through a set of shoulder presses when someone started saying something to me. I could hear the voice underneath the music, but not the words. I finished the set the bar down, took one earbud out. It was a kid, maybe 19 or 20, thin, pale, with the kind of posture that suggests someone who spends a lot of time hunched over something indoors. He was wearing gym clothes that did not look worn in yet. He had the general look of a person who had just signed up and was not entirely sure what to do with himself. He said something about thinking he recognized me. That opener, the one that is clearly not true, but the person needs a way to start talking, and that is what they reach for. I told him I did not think we had met. I put my earbud back in. He kept going. He stepped a little closer. He said his name was Sean. He asked if I went to school in the area. I said no. He asked where I worked. I gave a vague answer. He asked if I was into sports. I said sometimes. I was not rude. I was just not engaged. I gave the shortest possible answers and kept my body angled toward the rack to signal that I wanted to get back to what I was doing. Then he asked for my Instagram and my Snapchat. I do not know why I gave them to him. To this day, I genuinely cannot explain it. I think I just wanted the conversation to end, and that felt like the fastest way to make it end. I said the usernames. He pulled out his phone, and I put both earbuds back in and went back to my set. He said bye 3 times before he walked away. I counted. That night around 9, I got a snap from an account with the name Sean_WB. I opened it with my stomach already mildly braced for something awkward. His face was too close to the camera. His head was tilted down and to one side resting on his hand, and he had a half smile that did not reach his eyes. The text over the image said, "Hey," with 3 Ys. I stared at it for a second. I removed him from my contacts. Less than a minute later, a new snap came in from the same account. I waited a few minutes before opening it. When I did, the expression on his face had changed completely. He was sitting upright now. The half smile was gone. He looked directly into the camera with something that I can only describe as a flat kind of anger. The expression of someone who was not used to being ignored and did not like the feeling. The text over the image said, "Why did you remove me?" I blocked the account. I put my phone face down on the desk and exhaled. Half an hour went by. My phone buzzed. 2 notifications. The first said, "Sean added you as a friend." The second said, "Snapchat from Sean." He had made a new account. I sat there with the phone in my hand. I felt something shift in my chest. Not fear yet. Something underneath fear. Something earlier and quieter. The recognition that this situation had a shape I did not like. I opened the snap. It was a photograph of my front lawn, my house, the number on the mailbox visible in the corner of the frame. The text over the image said, "Answer me." I stood up. I crossed to the window and looked down at the front of the house. The street was quiet. Parked cars. A porch light across the road. Nothing moving. I stood back from the window and thought about what I was dealing with. He had found my address. The most likely way was Snapchat's map feature, which at the time was less restricted than it is now. If my location had been on and he had added my original account before I blocked him, he could have caught my position long enough to get a general location. From there, it was not hard. You can look up an address from a rough area and a name if you are motivated. He was motivated. That much was clear. I thought about calling the police. I pulled up the number twice and stopped both times. I had a screenshot of a creepy snap and a photo of my house. I did not know how that would land over the phone. I told myself I would call if anything else happened. I should have called then. That is the honest thing to say about that decision. Answer me. I turned off most of the lights in the house. I sat on the couch in the living room with my back to the wall and the front window at my 9 o'clock so I could see out of it without being directly in front of it. My phone stayed quiet for about 40 minutes. then a tap on the window. Just one, soft. The kind of sound a knuckle makes when it is pulled back quickly after contact, not a full knock, just a tap. The sound of someone testing whether you are in there. I did not move. Another tap, same rhythm, same restraint. I looked at the window from across the room. The blinds were down. I could not see out. He could not see in. At least that was what I told myself. I stood up slowly. I crossed the room in 4 steps. I put my back flat against the wall next to the window. My hand found the bottom of the blind cord. I took one breath. I pulled the blind up and the window latch opened in the same motion and grabbed a fistful of his jacket collar before he could process what was happening. He was right there, standing on the small concrete step below the windowsill, with his face about 8 inches from the glass. The surprise on his face lasted about half a second. I pulled him through the open window into the room. He hit the floor. I hit him twice. He went limp, not unconscious but down, curled up and not moving on my living room rug. I called 911. By the time the 2 officers arrived, he was awake, sitting up against the baseboard with his knees pulled to his chest. And while one of the officers was still on my porch asking me to explain what had happened, Sean started talking. He was loud about it. He said he would be back. He said he knew where I lived. He said this was not over. He said several things in a row that I do not need to repeat because the officers were standing 3 feet away from him when he said all of them, and they heard every word. The officer closest to him stopped writing in his notepad and looked at his partner. His partner looked at Sean. Neither of them looked at me. They cuffed him. They walked him out to the cruiser. One officer stayed behind to take my full statement while the other sat with Sean in the back seat. The officer taking my statement told me that the things Sean had said out loud in front of 2 uniformed police officers had made my situation significantly simpler. He said that in his experience, people who made those kinds of statements directly to law enforcement tended to find the legal process moving very quickly. He was not wrong about that. The part that stays with you. I moved out of that house 11 days later. I had already been thinking about relocating to a different part of the state for work reasons, and those reasons suddenly felt a lot more urgent. I kept my Snapchat account, but I changed the username. I locked down every privacy setting on every app I had. Location off across the board, account private, no new follower requests accepted without verification. The gym thing is the one people react most strongly to when I tell them this story in person. They ask why I gave him my username, and I understand why they ask that. I have asked myself the same thing many times. The honest answer is that it felt like a small thing in the moment. A stranger at the gym asking for social media. Mildly annoying but not alarming. The kind of interaction you want to end quickly, so you give the easiest possible answer and move on. That is how these things work. They do not start with a reason to be afraid. They start with something small and slightly uncomfortable that you rationalize your way past. The camping story is the same thing. Lexi adding a stranger back because her friends told her to, because it was funny, because the score was only 7, and that seemed like a kid messing around. Small decision, not alarming. The phone on the bus. Tara's Bitmoji on my house. Small thing that became enormous in the space of about 4 minutes. I want to say something about the Snapchat map feature specifically because it was involved in more than one of these situations. When it launched, people did not fully understand what they were turning on. The default was often set to visible. You had to go in and manually turn it off. And during that window, before most people knew to change it, that feature was a live broadcast of your location to every person who had your account. Every stranger you had ever accepted, every person you had ever added and not removed. Go check your settings right now. Not after this video, right now. Every account I have is private. Every location service tied to a social app is off. I do not accept follow requests from people I cannot identify. I do not give my username to strangers to end an awkward conversation. I think about the man in the Maine woods, standing outside that tent in the dark, taking a selfie with our camp behind him, smiling into his own front camera like it was the most normal thing in the world. I think about the creak on the floor that night when Tara's phone was in my backyard. I think about the tap on my window, soft, patient, testing. And I think about the fact that in every single one of these situations, the person was already there before anyone knew to be afraid, already close, already watching. The app just made them confident enough to make contact. That is the part that stays with me. Not the moments of confrontation, the moments before them, the quiet ones, the ones nobody noticed. Turn your location off. Check your followers. Know who has access to you, because some of them are already standing closer than your phone is telling you.